When people ask me to talk about myself and tell the story of my life and how I ended up doing what I'm doing, I often choose to talk about my parents because they reflect what I was as a child and what I became as an adult. My parents were very, very unique because they were born in a unique time and in a unique place. They were born in Romania, and at the time, Romania was under communism. So religion was forbidden. Churches were demolished. The whole society was corrupted, let's say. And because of that, my parents had to adapt their beliefs and their paradigms to the current situation. And they had to change their beliefs according to what was happening. So therefore, I was affected by that. I was living in a house where beliefs were very moldable. So my mother was very emotional and she was very artistic and she was very gifted with crafts and drawing, and she was an amazing chef, and she was spoiling us because every day she would imagine a new recipe so we would never have to eat the same food 2 days in a row. And that taught me that you shouldn't live a boring life. You should always find new things about next day. And that also taught me that you always have resources if you have a strong imagination. Now, another thing that made me increase my awareness and my imagination was the fact that my mother used to tell me stories. And the stories were unique. They were not like how other parents are telling stories. My mother used to blend realities. She used to tell me a very known story, like White Snow, for example, or Tom and Jerry, or whatever story you can choose. And in the middle of the story, when I was absorbed by the subject, she would introduce in the story elements from my life. Like, for example, White Snow was in the picture, and then my cat would come in the picture and would interact with White Snow. And then out of the blue, my grandfather would come and would also interact with the characters. So that made me very flexible to change my realities at all times. Imagine, you had a story and then you had real characters. So as a kid, you don't make rules. Rules were given to you. So she gave me very flexible rules. And that made me the adult that I am right now. That's why the slogan of my life and of the company that I'm running is everything you can imagine is real. My father, on the other hand, was the opposite, was the young side of my mother, the yang to her yin. And my father was an engineer by profession and by emotions. He was completely unemotional. He was very rigid, but a good person, but very rigid. He was very pragmatic. Now, my father was a genius, same like you see in the movies. He was probably, if he would be born in another country, like Germany or US, he would be a millionaire and me as well as an inheritor. Because he had amazing inventions that were used by the government to make a lot of money. But during communism, the inventions were belonging to the state. Everything was belonging to the state. So therefore, the inventions were also belonging to the state. So one of the things that my father has done as an invention, I remember he was working on a project that he built, he conceived and he built based on a budget from the government, was a transportation in vacuum through tubes for goods and people. And there's a fun fact to consider that Elon Musk, the richest person in the world right now and the entrepreneur with Tesla and SpaceX, is building right now, or he has a project to build transportation through vacuum. So it's the same, very similar project with what my father built. Another thing that my father did, he upgraded my car, which was a Renault 10 from 1969. He upgraded the carburetor to make it more efficient. So the gasoline consumption decreased by almost 30%. And this was, something fantastic at that time when the gasoline was expensive and you couldn't find gasoline, so it was great. Now, when I was 9 years old, my father gave me a project. And this is when my life purpose began without me even knowing. So he gave me a project that he was concerned with all his life, which was perpetuum mobile. Perpetuum mobile means perpetual motion. So he wanted to build a machine that never stops. Or in other words, to find a source of energy that is truly infinite. I was often thinking about this project, thinking how to solve this project because it was really bugging me. I wanted to find a source of energy, So he gave me this project when I was 9 years old. Then the world of magic, my childhood, went completely in the fog. Something happened overnight and I became an adult. So I grew up and I became a student, I got a corporate job, and of course, I forgot about the world of magic. And same like everybody else, responsibilities came, money, and so on. And in my 20s, something happened. I had a few events in my life that brought me back to my true self. So in my 20s, my parents fell sick, very sudden, and they died shortly after. And this completely destroyed my universe. And of course, what you do when you're destroyed, it's the moment of catharsis. There you reach and then you start asking yourself questions that you don't ask when the life goes into routine and normal. And I took it as a quest in my life to make sure that I don't get sick in my 50s. They were in their 50s when they died. I will not get sick and I will control this. If I have to die from a certain reason, I have to be in control of that. So I have to be healthy. So I started studying and I read books and I read as many books as possible on cancer. My father had cancer. As many books on strokes. My mother had a stroke, tumors, blood pressure, all the diseases that they had, that by the way coincide with the number 3, 4 top diseases in the world. Yeah. And I started reading and I started to understand the prevention, how not to reach there. And of course, years went by. I forgot that I learned and I have to practice. So I didn't practice, I just learned. So the knowledge was there, but there was no practice. So in 2014, second shock of my life, I got sick. I was in a corporate role, I got sick, and I ended up in a hospital with a surgery. And this was my second wake-up call. I woke up and then I realized, wait a minute, I learned all these things, but I'm not applying anything. I have to start applying. So I left my corporate job and I started practicing and teaching martial arts full-time, which I was doing as a hobby before. So I put in my life the things that I learned, plus more and more and more and more. And I became very healthy. I became very fit. I started helping people around me, my students, but I wasn't doing it regularly until I had my third shock, which is I broke my leg. I had an accident. I broke my leg and I went to the hospital. I had another surgery, my second surgery, and I got stuck in bed for almost 2 months and a half. But the difference is that right now I was very fit because I was already practicing. I didn't only have the knowledge, I had the experience and I was practicing. I was very fit, so I was very proud that people look at me and they said, how come with an Achilles tendon surgery, after 2 months you can walk, you can practice Tai Chi, you can play football? It's crazy, it's madness, don't do it. And I was doing it. Now, in these 2 months when I broke my leg, I had the time to realize and to finish my book. And I finished the book, which is this book, yeah? And I published, I printed, and then I started spreading the word and spreading the book and the method to people, for other people to benefit. Now, the interesting part is that recently I had an epiphany that this is actually the project that my father gave me when I was 9 years old. because the project that I had was to find an unlimited source of energy. And that is the chi, that is key. So I am completing the project that my father gave me.